Hello and welcome to Ramblings. I'm Kirk, your host, the former mayor of Carlisle, and enjoy having the opportunity to bring you some unique and interesting things about Carlisle. And some weeks we'll just take 5, 6, or 7 minutes and I'll ramble, and that's how we came up with the name. But I find it more interesting and usually a lot more entertaining and more educational, more informational when I take the opportunity to bring somebody along with us and let them talk rather than me. You had the opportunity to hear me for years, and so now we're happy to bring in. And today, my guest is Courtney Cauthon. She has dual positions here in Carlisle, but we're going to start, first of all, just recently elected as president of Historic Carlisle. So welcome.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you. And you might notice that we're both dressed differently. Now, in her words, because it's hot today, she said that I dressed as a sane person and she dressed as an insane person. The reason I'm dressed the way I did is because I was late. She was on time. But anyway, welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us today.
Thank you.
There's probably people who are not familiar with, we hear the term, Historic Carlisle, Historic Carlisle. We're thinking of the community itself.
The district, yes. Yeah.
In matter of fact, it's an organization that, tell us about this organization.
Well, Historic Carlisle, Inc. is a wonderful organization. We do many things to promote and preserve Carlisle's history. The Civil War plaques that you see around the area, which is always wonderful for tourists coming in. It's one of those very recognizable things that you can say, oh, look, that building was definitely here during the Civil War. So we do all of that. And in November, we do programs, educational programs. This year, actually, we're doing a suffrage program for the schools, which will be a lot of fun, bringing interesting aspects of the suffrage movement, because this is the anniversary of women having the right to vote, and fought very hard and long for that right. So we're bringing and presenting that to the kids in Carlisle, to mostly high schoolers, but I think we're going to open it up to the middle school as well, and then do an additional speaking engagement at the Historical Society. The Cumberland County Historical Society is a different organization. They have the museum, and we do other things throughout the community.
Well, there's
preserve and promote history. So.
There's a great deal of history in this town. I thought I knew a lot because during my quarter century as mayor, I found myself researching and learning a lot. Mm-hmm. Then I became a volunteer with the Historical Society, mm-hmm. and I actually found out how very little I knew and how much more there is to learn. So that's basically the responsibility for mm-hmm. Historic Carlisle Inc. to get the word out about, did you know this?
Absolutely. We do a lot of the large placards, not the green road signs, but rather the large, graphic placards that you see around. Members of our board, members of our, historic Carlisle community have prepared those, and we put those out. So if you're just walking around, the average everyday person can take a moment and learn about exactly where they're standing and how that moment or that place had such a paramount, influence on not only Carlisle's history, but in many cases, the history of the region. And
now, you are dressed in what attire for what era?
It would be just before the turn of the 20th century, so the 1890s, roughly, where the large the large skirts, the hoop skirts and the bustle skirts have faded away, and we've displaced our fluff to the shoulders.
Will this be the aristocrats that would wear something like this?
This is more of a high end, yes. Though, quite honestly, women of all classes, we all want to look and feel nice, and many women of all classes would at least attempt to follow whatever fashion things were fashionable as much as they could. So, but this is a little bit more of that.
You have furthered your studies in the history area? You have a master's degree in history?
Yeah, I have a bachelor's and multiple masters. Yeah, so I am technically a historian.
And when you started that, were you in Carlisle, or was that before you came to Carlisle?
No, it was before I came to Carlisle. I started my bachelor's decades ago. We'll leave that undisclosed. Okay. But I studied in Montana and did my internship at the Museum of the Rockies, which is fairly well known for its archaeology program. And then my husband was a active duty Marine, and I went back and got my master's while he was at the Wounded Warrior Battalion. So just kept collecting degrees, and finally had a wonderful opportunity to put those degrees to good use.
Well, you've come to Carlisle with a strong historical or background in history, and you started something that's called Time Walker Tours.
Correct. My partner Jennifer Oswald and I.
That's
Yes.
right. And
Yeah.
so, Time Walker Tours. That conjures up in my mind a couple of different things.
Okay.
You know, I could see where it could be very, very historical.
Yes.
I could also see where there might be a ghost lurking around a corner somewhere. And
There may be.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, if you would go on one of your tours, what would we experience?
Well, it really depends on which tour you chose to go on. We started off with the ghost tours because everybody loves a ghost tour. I mean, there are a few that don't, but we make you love them, even if you think you didn't. Or even if you think don't believe, we're still going to take you out and tell you the history, the more entertaining parts of Carlisle's history, because to really understand why we think maybe there's residual energies, you have to understand what happened in all of those places first. So we've gone through and looked at, so many different sources, from the Historical Society to the Army War College and AHEX archives and the National Archives and war records and personal papers, and pulled out all of these incredible stories from Carlisle's history that most people, one, don't have the time to deep dive like we did,
or know how to do that,
or know how to do it. And we've presented it in an easy, palatable, about an hour and a half little wander around town, and we stop at various locations and talk to you about what happened, and then give you the more current, this is what people think they see and whatnot. But that's just for our ghost tours. Now we do have the tavern tours as well, where we go to 3 different local alcohol establishments, and many of the places recreate historical drinks for us, and we talk to you about local alcohol history, local tavern history, some just general alcohol history as it pertains to the U.S. And that's a little bawdy. It's a little fun. You add alcohol to anything, and
that's true.
It gets a little bit more risque.
That's right.
It's not, not anything you wouldn't want to take your grandmother to. Well, maybe it would. Depends on grandma.
Depends on grandma. That's exactly right.
But we do a lot of those things, and we have even kicked around just general history tours for people who aren't necessarily into ghosts and don't necessarily want to have some whiskey with their storytelling. We'll walk people around. We do things for Valentine's Day. Every Christmas we do a completely free Christmas caroling event, where we're graced to have Santa visit, because jolly old Saint Nick loves a Christmas carol.
I'll bet he loves to sip of whiskey too. I mean, those rosy red cheeks.
No judgment, but
Right, okay.
Hey.
I know.
Hey, everybody needs a little flush, and it's cold,
and a belly.
so a little nip, is fine. But we wanted to bring back some traditions that Carlisle used to have, and people got a little bit too busy and started to forget.
Right.
Like the ice skating rink across from the fairgrounds, which would be a wonderful pet project. But those little
Doesn't
things.
get cold enough anymore.
I don't know.
I know.
But
it's the circle you're talking
it
about.
is, yes, circle, yep, yeah, the one that doesn't make any sense for those of us who aren't from Carlisle.
Do you know why that's there?
Because it was the ice skating rink,
But
right?
you know what it was before that?
What was it? Tell me.
That was the eastern end of the Pennsylvania Turnpike. That was the Turnpike interchange.
Is that right?
See, the Turnpike did not always go down to Philadelphia and into New Jersey. It used to go from Carlisle to Irwin, the original Turnpike.
Look at you.
And that circle,
we should get you in a dress and bring you on a tour.
Well, do I have to wear the dress?
I guess we could get you some sort of more masculine
Knickers,
outfit, but
okay.
I think everybody would love a dress.
Actually, so that, and there was a hotel which sits where the housing unit is, with, to the left there.
Right, yeah.
And that hotel burned to the ground in the late 50s.
Goodness.
That was built there because it was a Turnpike interchange.
well, it's awfully convenient.
Yes.
I mean, we've seen, as the railroad people lost interest in the railroad. We lost hotels downtown too.
Country's
So,
biggest mistake was losing interest in passenger rail. But we're not
So,
here to talk about that. We're here to talk about. This may be an unfair question, and if you
Okay.
don't want to answer it,
All right.
you don't have to.
Okay.
Okay. But what was the most unusual thing that you found out about Carlisle in your research? And if you use it as a part of your...
We do. It's funny that you would ask, because we created a tour called the Would I Lie to You tour based on all of those things. We'd be sitting in the library and I'd come across something, or Jen would come across something and go, oh no, you have to read this. Look at this. Nobody's going to believe this. So we created a tour wherein we have a plethora of stories that are absolutely genuine, and then we've made up a few, and our guests get to vote at the end, because we don't want to send people out with the wrong history. Sure. That would not be a good name for us. So everybody votes, whether or not they think that we're lying or whether we're telling the truth. There's so many. Carlisle is such an eccentric little town.
But we don't think we are.
No, I know. Really embrace the eccentricity as normal, which is fabulous. But
Now,
more people need to see it.
Don't know that it would make any of our viewers blush, but do you at all go past Bessie's house?
We've had a lot of requests for Bessie's house history and Bessie's house tours. We don't have a tour in that part of town at the moment. We do talk about the history, because I think, not to promote the industry
right.
by any means, but I find it fascinating that 3 generations of women were able to, continue this business, and it was definitely a handed down to your daughter kind of a situation. I think that's kind of amazing. But a lot of people are very interested in, the brutal end of how that.
There was one book written, and the book was written by an Associated Press reporter who he's a very interesting gentleman. He covered the murder trial, and he used that opportunity to, in addition, get additional background. It's out of print.
Is this the Bessie's book?
Yes.
I
Bessie's
have
house,
it.
yes.
A local was kind enough to give me his copy.
Oh, hardbound or paperback?
Hardbound.
Oh.
And autographed.
By Paul.
Yeah.
Zdenek. That's nice.
Yeah. So.
But and I think it's very accurate, because I worked with this. I was a reporter at the time, and covered the trial with him. And he, as I said, he was with the Associated Press, and he needed the color. He had the hard facts, but he needed to know more. So I found it interesting, and I got to learn a lot more about it as well. But sometimes is it something we should mention, or shouldn't we mention it? But more and more, I think it's becoming an acceptable part of Carlisle's history, whereas for a long time it was hush hush.
Yeah. I think that people are with enough time and enough distance. People can say, "Oh wow, that is fascinating. That is really that." Echelon of society was a clientele of Miss Bessie. Interesting. So
and there's a lot of misinformation as well about
the
operation.
I'm sure.
Well, I tell you what we'd like to do now?
All right.
Would be for you to remind us that Time Walker Tours. I guess we could get 2 websites. One to promote Historic Carlisle. If somebody would like to
absolutely
contact for that, if you want to have that.
We are nonprofit and love to have new members, love to have new blood. Preserving Carlisle's history. We don't ask a lot of people, but unfortunately our big fundraiser of the year was canceled / postponed last year for obvious reasons. We're on Facebook and historiccarlisle.com, but mostly Facebook. That's the most active place to find us.
And they find you on Facebook under Historic Carlisle?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Just type in Historic Carlisle and we'll pop up. And then, of course, timewalkertours.com. We love to have, locals. We always tell locals, we will tell you something. We guarantee to tell you something that you didn't know, no matter how long you've lived here. So, and bring tourists.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to thank Diane Cauthon for being with us today. As you just heard, she has 2 roles and probably more than that we don't have the time to get into today. And please feel free to contact your organizations, either one. And I want to thank you for joining us today on Ramblings.